Our topic for today is artificial intelligence in education. And we have an artificial intelligence educator today with us. Her name is Simi Lawonyi.
It's a pleasure to be here, and a very interesting topic as well.
What exactly is artificial intelligence?
There's no way we will discuss artificial intelligence without discussing education, and vice versa, I think. The direction education is going, there's absolutely no way to carry the conversation forward on education without referring to artificial intelligence. Really, artificial intelligence is a simulation of human intelligence. And so it begins with, if human intelligence does not exist, artificial intelligence does not exist. And where I see this interplay with the definition of education is, with education, you're able to develop human intellect. And I believe that the same mechanisms and techniques are used in artificial intelligence. It's a form of education that enables devices and computers to get to a point where they're able to simulate human behavior. There's something called machine learning, which really just refers to a similar process as what happens with a human being when we consume information, and that information is transformed into knowledge that changes our behavior and informs how we behave. So that's the best way I can explain artificial intelligence. I heard someone in the tech sphere recently say, however, that you can't really describe or define artificial intelligence because it keeps changing, right? So he said the best definition of artificial intelligence that he's heard is that it's the next thing that computers can do that we haven't even thought of. So when we think we've defined it, there's something else in the future waiting for us. Exactly. So I thought that was an interesting
that's very
definition.
Interesting.
So talking about artificial intelligence, can you give us, I would say, a brief overview history of where artificial intelligence is coming from and where you think it is headed generally, inside, outside Nigeria, Africa, and all of that?
Okay. Artificial intelligence actually has a relatively long history, and it's been applied in various ways over the decades. I know, for example, that in the U.S. military, usually, and the military is often where these higher forms of technology are first developed. They're applied to help to achieve a country's goals, right? Give strength, military strength to a country. And so artificial intelligence is not new on the horizon, right? I remember, was it RoboCop back in the day? Or the movie, exactly. Speaking about as far back in history as I can go in my years. And so, so the idea of artificial intelligence is not new, right? And even the understanding, so the average person you speak to has some notion of what a robot is, or has thought about robots, or watched a movie that involves robots. And I think, you're asking about the future. I think the challenge for us is we don't see artificial intelligence at play. We are already consumers. We already apply artificial intelligence in numerous ways. If you use Google Maps, that functions on AI. There are numerous functions now. For example, Gmail. If you use Gmail, I don't know if you've observed that when you start typing your responses now in Gmail, it predicts what you're going to say.
Yes,
isn't it freaky?
Those options.
Very often it's like, I just thought that's what I was going to say. But basically, what's happening there? Through the years, right? All the words you've typed, all the email responses that you've accumulated through the years, the computer harnesses that information as data and is able to predict based on just patterns, right, of historical data, what this person is likely to say. And it seems like magic when it comes out on the end. But if you think about the way human beings learn, think about a child, the way a child learns. They say we underestimate the capacity of a child to learn.
True.
You meet little kids who maybe don't start talking till like 2.5. And then you meet some kids who, like, before the age of 1, they start talking. And I know, DNA, all kinds of things, the environment affects that. But the truth is, the human mind has such an incredible capacity that if from an early age you begin to talk to a child intelligently, you'll be amazed that the child's capacity for knowledge also grows. And so you have little kids there's this little kid I like following on Instagram. Before the age of 1, she was having engaging conversations with her family. And, people asked her, how did this happen? They're like, we just talk to her like a normal human being, Yeah. So basically, and what's happening when learning happens is this child is absorbing information. The child sees, okay, today when I said this was the response. When I did this, and even kids who can't talk yet, right? You see babies, you're like, this child is so manipulative. How do they know? But they, okay, when I cried that day, food came. When I did X, Y, Z, this happened. And so just think, the human mind associates historical data, experiences with outcomes. And that is the mechanism behind AI. Feed it data, information, it begins to track patterns. Based on those patterns, it can predict, okay, this is the next thing that's most likely to happen in all the scenarios.
Now, I want to know, how can artificial intelligence automate basic activities in schools?
That's a great question. And, I think one of the concerns that's often raised when it comes to technology and application of technology in education is, look, we've not even solved basic problems in our education system in Nigeria. So how are we going to, why are we moving on to technology? And I think that the fact that there are basic things that need to be met is itself the argument for why technology should be adopted. And let me explain. First things first, technology enables certain things that we can't achieve without additional help.
Yes.
So what what technology is doing is it's allowing us to take best practices and scale them up using larger platforms that can reach more people. That is one way in which technology can serve to our advantage. But a second pattern you might observe, I don't know how aware or how much you followed the telecommunications industry, for example, right? I remember I was having a conversation yesterday that, remember when if you wanted to make international phone calls, you go to Nitel. We had, I had a parent abroad, and so every Wednesday, we knew that it was the night to go and talk to them. And so you'd all travel to Nitel, 3 minutes on the call, so each child gets 30 seconds. Hello, daddy, okay, bye. That was not that long ago. I'm not that old, okay? But what do you observe? Within a decade, every market woman has a device. And if she so wishes, she can call abroad. Like, what happened there? So, a couple decades ago, we would have said, Nigeria is too far behind in this telecoms thing, that we're still traveling to Nitel to call. What day are we going to get there? Incredibly, the beauty of technology is that it serves itself, right? It makes itself accessible. And so already the average Nigerian on the streets has a device with which they can call. And that's leapfrogging in the technology arena. And I believe that what technology can do in education is allow us to leapfrog some of the issues and some of the challenges that make education currently difficult. One being accessibility. How do we get education to more people? Another being quality. So if we can take what's happening, Finland is known to have some of the best education in the world globally. What if we can take what they're doing and apply it locally? Where does AI come in? Well, the context for a student in Finland is very different from the context for a Nigerian student, right?
Yes.
The environment is different, the experiences are different. So can we take the best of what Finland is doing, contextualize it locally? AI understands, through AI, you can determine, okay, this is the level of learning of this particular student. And it's already happening in all over the world in different, it may be happening in pockets, but it's happening where you can decide, okay, this is the level of this student's current proficiency. Based on your understanding of that baseline, the computer then feeds the student appropriate information. So individualized learning begins to happen. So you can have a classroom of 20 people. In the classroom, this child grew up maybe in a poor home. He didn't have extra lesson teachers to support him. This other child has the highest IQ in the class. This other child has a stay-at-home mom who helps him with his homework. So each of the kids has a different level of learning. But then there's just one teacher, and the teacher, how much time is there in a day? So what we're seeing and what's being promoted in the conversation around AI and education is, how about a collaborative model where we don't just leave learning to computers, right? We don't leave the teaching to computers, but the teacher is able to better spread herself to each of her students, right? And even better still, provide customized learning, because she has this tablet or a device in her hand that shows her, okay, these are all the grades that the student has scored. And it doesn't even have to be just during her own time. It can be accumulated data over the last few years.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask, looking at where Nigeria is now, how far do you think it will take for us to actually integrate artificial intelligence into education, looking at what we have presently?
Yes, that's a good question. I think we ask that about a lot of, not just artificial intelligence, but technology in general and adoption. One good sign is that Nigerians do seem to be early adopters of technology in general. I don't know if it's a status thing or whatever, but I'm always amazed to see how very quickly we hop onto gadgets. But in the feature we watched at the beginning, there was emphasis on two things that need to happen in parallel. One, education needs to catch up. Two, policy needs to catch up. So this is the purview of education and government. Government needs to be cognizant of what's happening in the space, and because government will serve as the regulators and the policymakers around, this nascent subject. So I can be, maybe it's a cheap way out, but what I would say is our adoption of technology, and this technology in particular, is going to be strongly tied to how open the government. It's not, the reasons we're not adopting these technologies have nothing to do with our lack of intelligence, or there are brilliant people here. There are brilliant solutions already being developed by Nigerians based on AI application. And so it won't be for lack of knowledge or lack of ability or competence. It would be probably lack of an enabling environment, lack of broad access. So that's where I think education comes in. You may have heard of Code Lagos, which is an initiative of the Lagos State government to teach 1 million people, Lagos State residents, how to code by 2020. And this was a deliberate attempt that combines both policy and education, where the Lagos State government said, look, 24 million people in the state, continuing to grow. Our current infrastructure for education is being stretched. We know that in the future we're going to need to rely on technology. Let's begin, and people, I remember when the program started, a lot of people were like, you've not even fixed the school chairs. There's no roof on the head. So why are you teaching coding? And the response to that is, look, we can't say because the chairs aren't fixed, we'll let the world, you were asking, counterparts across the world, let them keep moving by while we fix our chairs. No, under that freaking tree, I will learn how to code, right? Exactly. Like where you are, wherever you are, let's take the knowledge. And so on one hand, and it's not just for Nigeria, across the world, AI is relatively new. I don't see that in the next decade, the entire world would have caught up. But what I realized too is that technology moves quickly, sometimes more quickly than we realize. We should be focusing on how our policies and regulation will stay abreast of what's going on and keep up and catch up with it. We should also be looking at how our education system will prepare our populace for that future. It's going to happen. Yeah. Whether or not we want to, it will come to us.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very excited that you are shedding more light into where we are now, where we're going, and what we should look out for. Thank you so much. This has been a very exciting conversation. To enjoy more interesting episodes of Tea or Coffee, then like and subscribe.